Hi guys, how are you? Welcome back to my very windy cold spring garden. Wasn't I just standing here in one of my previous videos with a t-shirt and saying how wonderful it is and it's warm and it feels like spring is on its way? Clearly I jinxed something. I'm never ever gonna say that again. Here I'm standing now with a winter gilet. I'm kind of refusing to take a winter jacket, even though I think I should in a second. But what I did in the morning, I just quickly drove to the garden center because I ran out on soil. And then I was just browsing and I thought, oh, maybe I find something. And I think you all know the feeling if you're already on a mission of like, maybe I find something, definitely find something. And where is it? Look at my newest baby. Isn't that the most beautiful foliage that you could possibly think about? Obviously, peach perfection. How could I not buy this? Beautiful Acer. The second I saw it, I was like, mine. It went straight into my shopping cart, not even thinking what to do with it, where to put it. And only then I started reading the label and I was like, oh, okay, that is a good one. I know what to do with that. So I'm super excited to do this little planting project with you, which was actually not in line at all. I still have all my perennials, all my annuals, everything standing here, and things are trying to get into the ground. But well, sometimes other things are a little more important and this just needed to happen. Since I'm already standing here with all my annuals, I just want to give you a quick update. And this is what happens when the wind and the cold temperatures are picking up again. So that was my hibiscus mahogany splendor. Some of them are, well, not looking good. They actually had a quite tragic end, let's face it, this is exactly what it is. The eggplants, oh, also not looking fabulous, unfortunately. And then here all the amaranth, actually looking really nice, but I discovered that amaranth is a slug and snail magnet. So I had a huge slug sitting in this pot this morning, and this is what is left. So I really need to have a good close eye on it, because if I'm going to lose all of them, I'm going to start frying these dang little bastards, munging on my lovely plants here. As always, I obviously first want to give you some key information about this beauty here and then show you where I intend on planting it. But you might realize we are standing on a slope and this is exactly where this is bound to go. So I'm really excited to introduce this to the slope. But this is an Acer, obviously, just looking at the foliage. It is Acer PS, so pseudo something Brilliantissimum. I'm going to give you a look at the label in a second. And the label came in English. I was so happy about that. But then I was confused because the label said, this hardy ash. And I was like, ash? Hold on a second, it's an Acer, so definitely something got lost in translation here. But what is so special about it, and I think you get to see it instantly, is the foliage. So the first fresh foliage that comes is not green. It really comes in this beautiful magical color of peach, really deep, beautiful orangey rusted color. And they had 5 of those in the garden center and they all kind of had a different coloring going on. And I picked the one with the strongest color because I was like, okay, I'm not going to take it now. It might be gone by tomorrow, because it was a busy beehive in the garden center. And I was convinced that somebody might just take it out of my hand if I'm not going to do it today. So as the year progresses, these leaves are going to change color, and you can see a little bit already here, or at least at the underside. This is kind of what I'm expecting. So a little bit more on the chartreuse side of things, like a very fresh yellow-green tone, which is still beautiful because I think it's just going to lighten up everything. So I'm really not mad about it. Apparently this has not really a big impact during autumn. I'm still going to discover it and share it with you. In terms of blooms, Acers, they do flower, but it's not one of those like big blooms where you go like, ooh, wow, look at that. Kind of like a little more, I don't want to say invisible, but they kind of like melt in a little more. And on top of it, the flowers on this one here are almost the same color as the leaves, but you don't really plant an Acer for flowering. I mean, you really plant it just for the beautiful foliage accent that it brings to any kind of border. Normally, this would grow to a fully tree size to 7 meters, which is quite huge. And in terms of location, it thrives best in sun and in partly shade, as most Acers do. And in terms of soil, it's not fuzzy, just a normal, neutral, average garden soil will just do the job for this one here. But I told you, normally they grow up to 7 meters in height, which is quite a big tree. And do I really want to put such a big tree here on the slope? No, because then I would just take a lot of sun at one point. But this one here, and I'm going to give you a close look in a second, as I said, it has been grafted. So it is a standard tree, which is really lovely because then it's not going to grow to a massive, huge size, and I can just size control and keep it on a smaller size. And the lovely thing is, and it says already on the label, is that tub, garden and patio plant. So this can grow very happily in a container, which is wonderful. Obviously, you need to have an eye on it then, because Acers, or this Acer, has kind of like a heart-shaped root with a lot of fleshy roots that would penetrate down into the ground, and they can be quite vigorous. So I need to have an eye on it. I have a really good, decent size, good container. I have fresh garden soil, I have my starting fertilizer, I have everything that I want. And the lovely thing about putting it in a container is that I can move it around wherever I think I need some interest. So it's almost a little bit like garden staging, which I always really love and enjoy. And then I can also just have a closer eye on it and see how do I like it over the year. Because actually I knew this variety and I had an eye on it already. And I thought we still have room at the garden, like in this one area where nothing really has been developed, and I still intend on putting a tree there. And I had an eye on this Acer variety because I thought it's so special and kind of glamorous and just beautiful in a way. So now having it as a standard, that just allows me to have a tree that I could just like put around in the garden wherever I want to, but it's not so much in concrete, you know. It's not like I plant the tree and then I have the tree. So now I really have an entire year or even longer just to observe it and see if I like it. But what I'm going to do now, quickly show you the label, so you can do a screenshot if you wanted to, and then show you the location where I want to put it. So here's the label. As I said, you can just take a screenshot or write down the name if you are intrigued in it. It's Acer Brilliantissimum. I think I just said Brilliantissimus. I can't even read apparently anymore, so it's always good to show you the label. But again, I just want to give you a closer look at that foliage. Isn't that just the most glorious color you could possibly imagine? And so rare. I mean, what tree really comes with such color on foliage? I don't really think I know any other. So this is exactly why I was so thrilled about this variety. And Alfie's also thrilled about something. I just see her there. She's like looking at something, and oh well, okay, on an exploration course apparently again. This is where I want to put the Acer, so it is on the third layer or the third terrace on a slope, and yes, right next to the compost heap. But I think it is a good location because what it does is you have the tulips in the same peachy color, a little more pale though, and then I have the hyacinth there, I have the geum, so everything is kind of like color coordinated, and this idea of peach tones also comes up here on this layer. And standing next to the compost heap, I think I'm going to walk back a little bit with you now, will be a nice idea, because when I'm standing here on this side of this slope, I have a straight view onto the compost heap, and whatever I put there to cover the situation up will be just nice and beneficial. So I already have a hazel growing just behind the tulips there, which is just coming back to life. Here an elder, which already looks really nice and vigorous. And then I'm going to have the Acer in a container, which I think is going to work just brilliant. What I want to do is I have some sunflowers in a peach color that I've just sown into pots. So I want to underplant it with some of those sunflowers here. They stay on the shorter side, and then eventually I can also put something really nice like pale blue eventually in the container at one point to really bring all those peach and blue tones that I intend on putting here onto the last layer of this slope, also a little bit up here to connect all those terraces. I was just checking for the best light to pot it up, and the reality of the things is it is when the compost heap is in my back, so not a really nice backdrop now. But you know what? This is the reality of things, because this is exactly where it's going to stand in the future. And if I show it to you again, this is where you're going to see it. So it's not Instagram perfect, and YouTube, it is a reality. So this one comes in a container with a bamboo cane as a support, and I'm so going to leave it like that, because you know that we get hit by very strong winds here. We are on top of the dike. This is kind of like the midsection of the dike, but quite often we have wind traveling from west, which is just there. So it is ideal to grow things here because there is a lot of light here, and it can be quite protected depending on where the wind comes from. But if the wind really comes from west, then it hits hard, and this is why good support is important for it. And have an eye on it. Maybe I need to put even a thicker cane or something else in here. But what I want to do is when I plant it dead level, even though the graft is up here this time, which means that there's no kind of like risk on like burying the graft, because when a graft on a tree is down here, you do not want to bury that graft, because if you do so, then that graft is going to send a lot of suckers up, and then the trouble starts. But here there is not really a risk. Still, what I want to do is plant it dead level as it comes in the container, because this is what it's used to and this is how it grew in here. What I will do is put it aside first, come in with some starting fertilizer, and I always use my organic bone chips They're good for the nitrogen level, and that supports a very good root growth on your plant, on perennials, on trees, on anything, on vegetables. So they are actually doing only goodness to your plant. So this is the first thing that I'm going to do. And I think I had a little too much soil in here, so I just make some space in the center. Get my lovely tree out of its container. I checked it in the garden center. It has really lovely fleshy roots, good root system. So I'm just thinking about maybe teasing them apart a little bit. Not too much though, I don't want to put extra stressor on it. And it's not pot bound really, so you know what, I think I'm going to leave it. Important is the bottom side, which looks good. There is no big tangle underneath there. So in general, this is actually looking really healthy and good. So I'm just going to pop it straight into the center. Maybe backfill with a little bit more soil. Yeah, that looks good. I want to leave a little bit of a brim here because I want to mulch it in just as a protection, also as a winter protection. What I do now is, hopefully the wind does not knock it over instantly. I bought some good garden soil. So again, one of those occasions where I would always say, really invest some money on some good quality soil, or at least a soil where you have good experience with, because this is what keeps your plant happy. And I won't really fertilize it. I'm not going to come in with any liquid fertilizer or anything. I just do the organic bone chips to really encourage this tree to produce a lot of new roots. And I already thought, since the container has a quite good decent size, I can underplant it. And I'm a little like, oh, I should have bought something else in the garden center today, because they had petunias in a really wonderful, how to describe it, kind of like a lavender color in a way. It was very special. The sun came out in a second in the garden center and they seemed to glow a little bit. So I was like, oh, they are nice. But then I thought, okay, be realistic. You have a lot of things that still need to find its way into the ground, and you really want to put more work onto you now. And the petunias, they are not happy the longer they sit on the driveway in their tiny container. So they really need to get into the ground fast. So this is going to come a little later. But I thought, like, when I have like sunflowers here in a peachy tone, and I hope that they will make it, then having these really lovely kind of like lavender color petunias in here, some organic bone chips just around it, that'd be just like such a wonderful combination of really those colors that I intend playing up here for the last layer of the slope. And then I also thought maybe a hydrangea. Don't want to say a blue one, more like a purple one, because I don't have acidic soil, so I know it will never be blue. But there are really lovely purple varieties. Maybe this could also be something intriguing in a container, because you can grow macrofolia hydrangeas really well in containers as well. So I was just checking the garden center, but they didn't really have them. They had like these like pink ones that came straight out of the greenhouse, and they were kind of like bred to look perfect. But I know it's one of those moments, you buy them, they look perfect, but well, let's be realistic. They would never look the stage here at this time of the year to what I would buy them. So I was like, no, this would be just, they'd be very disappointed once those little plants find their way into my garden. So this is good. I have enough space. So what I'm going to do now is mulch it in really nice and well. I'm going to just use exactly the same mulch that I use everywhere. So anything falls down now, this is not a problem. Lovely and thick. This looks wonderful. Definitely good for some underplanting. Going to come in, water it in, and that is it. That was a quick, lovely project, not on my list, but you know what? It makes me happy. And I think this is the most important thing about gardening, that you always find those projects that make you internally happy. One last quick look, and just imagine over the next years, if all those bearded iris that we plant, I just come in with my finger down here, they're going to produce more and more flowers, and you have this beautiful contrast of the blue bearded iris with the Acer coming with that foliage. I think that'd be so magical. And if I underplant this entire container just here with a big drift of sunflowers and then some really nice lavender color petunias in there, I can already envision it. I think this is going to look so pretty just going into the year, and envision how it's going to look later on in the year. That is it for today's video. Wind is picking up. It's cold wind, unfortunately. That is what it is. So I'm gonna head inside and throw myself again in a hot cup of coffee. But I just want to show you this as well, the ornamental rhubarb. I'm so happy about that. This is so wonderful. It's gonna come to bloom. Unfortunately, that was meant to flower red-ish in a way, but it doesn't. rhubarb, it's just the color of rhubarb. But anyways, it's beautiful, I'm happy with that. And if I wouldn't like the flower head, I could just always easily snip it off and then it would produce more leaves, which I might even do. And bearded iris kicking in, the cotinus that I planted, it comes to foliage now. I'm so happy, like things are really going kind of fast-ish now. And normally this is a point when I'm going to say like, oh, I'm going to spend the rest of the day, or at least a time of the day, at my bench there, but not today. I'm heading inside. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Had so much fun sharing it with you and obviously giving you all the updates on how the Acer is going to perform. I think it's going to be so beautiful. You can't see it now, but that was it for today's video. Take care, guys. Bye.